Hello and welcome to IBTimes UK. Pakistan has been executing nearly one person a day after it reinstated the death penalty following the Peshawar school massacre in December 2014. Right groups have warned that several death sentences are in breach of both domestic and international laws, and that inmates often make confessions after being tortured. We spoke with Kate Higham from the death penalty team at Reprieve on the escalation of executions in Pakistan and the need to reinstate a moratorium on capital punishment to avoid human rights abuses.
Before March of this year, they were only executing people who were sentenced to death in the anti-terrorism courts or the military courts. So sentenced to death for alleged links to terrorism. The problem is the anti-terrorism courts in particular are widely overused, and people are tried in the anti-terrorism courts for ordinary criminal offences. After March, the government issued a notification saying that the executions could resume for all classes of offences. So you could see people being executed for the full spectrum of offences in Pakistan which carry the death penalty. And there are 27 offences that carry the death penalty. And they range from murder to crimes like blasphemy, crimes like adultery, there's sabotage of a railway is in there. You know, it's a huge spectrum of offences, and many of them don't have lethal consequences. And the position in international law is that the death penalty should only be imposed where there is an intentional crime with lethal consequences. So far since December, Pakistan has executed 180 people, so that's nearly an execution a day. Although people were very in favour of the resumption of executions immediately after the terrible, terrible events at Peshawar, when you talk to people about some of the real issues and some of the cases where executions are taking place, they're absolutely shocked that that could be happening within the system. The idea that Pakistan could be executing somebody who is so mentally unwell that they don't even understand what is happening to them is not what people think of when they think of implementing the death penalty. And so when the realities of the situation of the 8,000 odd people on Pakistan's death row are properly explained, people are sympathetic and they do realise that perhaps this rush to execute as many people as possible is misguided.
Some people on death row in Pakistan have been sentenced to death when they were children, making the verdict illegal. In June, Pakistan executed Aftab Bahadur amid international outrage. Bahadur was arrested and sentenced to death at the age of 15, and he was executed even after his lawyer had tried to introduce new evidence that could prove his innocence. As Bahadur's case, the death sentence handed to Shafkat Hussain has also drawn international criticism. Hussain, still on the death row, was sentenced to death in 2004 for allegedly kidnapping and killing a 7-year-old boy. Hussain, who was 14 at the time of the sentence, was granted a last-minute reprieve in March 2015 after human rights groups warned that he had confessed to killing the boy after being tortured in his jail.
The problem is, because the issue of Shafkat's juvenility wasn't raised during his trial because of his ineffective counsel, every court that's looked at the case so far has refused to make a decision on the merits and has dismissed it on purely procedural grounds. Recently, though, the Sindh Human Rights Commission recommended that the Sindh government should now take the case back to the Supreme Court and ask them to reopen the case in full so that new evidence that's favourable to Shafkat can be given due consideration in the interests of justice. There are so many cases where convictions are unsafe or where there are other issues that would render an execution illegal under international law, that it's really, I think, essential that the moratorium on executions should be put back in place until at least until some of the issues are resolved.